Welcome to this newest edition of the UAC podcast. We've been out for a while, but we're back and excited because we got a lot of new projects that we've been involved in, new books that we've put out in the last year, 4 in the last couple months actually. And one of the new ones, and the one that I'm really excited about, is with our friend and author Henk Kraaijenhof. Henk, thanks for coming on and discussing your new book. And we got this right here, The Methodologies of Training in the 22nd Century, title, which I thought was a mistake at first, but it's pretty cool when I realized what the idea was there. It's been well received all over, and so we're excited about that. Before we get started, we want to say thanks and shout out to North Carolina, there, who's been gracious enough to give us a little gear. Thank you, Jonas. So Henk, it's been a while since we've talked, and I really appreciate you coming back on. A lot's changed with you, like what we were just talking off camera. So besides me bugging you about writing another book, what motivated you? Like, what were you what were you thinking as you got into it? And I'm bugging you, and you needed to think of something. Where was your head at that time? What were you thinking? What direction were you going in with that?
Well, every book I write, the moment I write it, and the moment it's finished, and the moment it's printed, and the moment I get it and read it back, I'm disappointed about myself, because the moment I finish it, there's more new stuff coming up, or stuff that I think I should have been in there. I forgot something, or should I have been telling or writing more about this topic or this issue, and that's a little bit disappointing from the author's point of view. But then you always, like a coach. I'm a coach again, or still, if you want to call it. You raise the bar for yourself as well. And this time the target was to first of all to introduce you to some good friends of mine, which are virtually unknown in the US. 3 other guys: Cornelius Krauss from Germany, a sports scientist and a coach, a brilliant young guy. Robert Hajduk, a sports scientist from Germany, and again a brilliant man and an active athlete himself. So I think that's important. And Bill Leich, a very long-term friend of mine, who was raised and educated in the US, in California, and then he moved to Europe for studies, and he stayed there since. I've been working with Bill since 1984. He's the guy taking the biopsy. So I thought it would be nice to give these guys a voice as well. Every year I organize an international seminar on invitation. It's small, but it's high quality. I only want people in there who understand and people who can work with the information presented there. And these guys have been speaking on my seminar, and so I know Bill, of course, for a longer time. But the other guys, I never heard him speaking, and they did very well. Interesting topics, good presentation. So I thought, hey, let's write a book together. Why not? Because we're kind of outliers here in Europe, not walking the common path, as a matter of fact, or the road more traveled. We choose the road less traveled, and it would be interesting to work together. So it's a work of 4 people, not my work only. I was just giving you ideas. They were free, whatever topic they chose, and they asked me if the topic was good enough, and of course I okayed their topics. And if you read the book, you will see there's some interesting material in there. Well, basically, it was my disappointment about what it started. The older you get, and maybe that's a fact of life, you become disappointed about your profession. So sometimes I always thought that coaches were passionate guys, searching in every corner for new information, applying it, and then changing it if it doesn't work. And I'm kind of disappointed it isn't really this way. The coaching profession is, and you're not the only one thinking that the title with the methodology for training on the 22nd was a typo. Basically everybody thought so. So I had to explain, no, it's not a typo. It's because we are running 50 years behind. Keeping that in mind, if you start reading it now, you're just ahead of the 22nd century. So that's basically it, to make a jump in perform, because most of our ideas come from the 1950s, 60s, 70s. especially in Europe and the US, my own teachers only pointed me at the books of Verkhoshansky, Zatshovsky, Matveyev, Jatskov, Bondarchuk. But these guys, basically, the bulk of their work in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, that's why they did their work, when the world of sport was completely different. For instance, there were in track and field, there were no indoor competitions at the time, or one in the world. There were no world championships indoors for sure. The density and competition increased tremendously. There's so many more competition. The world globalized, the world professionalized, the world of sport. We have not much more knowledge of biological process or biomedical information. So it's time for a change and time to improve. And looking around and listening around, there's not too many people say who do that, and people want to do that. But in the end, when you look around, they do the same things that they did on the track 30 years ago. The other thing is that the information is coming from a couple of sources right now. Most of the information comes from fitness and chiropractors and therapy. But hey, I'm looking high performance. I'm not looking for sick people. I'm not looking for people who are spending their time on the track or in the gym losing weight or trying to get fit in general. I'm looking for people who want to break the world record, who are people who want to be Olympic champion. And that's a completely different field from fitness instructors, or they kind of promoted the name to, let me say, performance consultants or performance coaches now. Everybody is performance coach. Everybody is a high performance expert. Everybody is a speed specialist nowadays. And if you look at their resume or look at their performances, they are far away from that. So, but that's mainly where the information comes from. Of course, I'm on Facebook. I Google and read internet and blogs as well. And what you see is mainly people trying to outsmart each other with nice one-liners that they read somewhere and think they came up with them themselves, and it became all kind of ridiculous to me. I still take my profession serious. I still think it's a job that has to be taken more serious than making some wisecracks or some on Facebook as the main bulk of your work, daily work.
Right.
And refer to each other's websites all the time, and so there's no really. That's a problem with Google and internet as source of information. People read less books nowadays and read less articles. But they say, well, I can look it up. I can just Google it. Yeah, absolutely. But it's the biggest garbage dump we have. It is information garbage. There's no filter on it. Every idiot can write what they want on the internet, and you have no idea. We're not critically thinking of critically to see if things are true. Is there some basic truth in there, or they're just a bunch of crap? We just don't know. And that's why I think the book was written by people who have a name as scientists, so at least they have the theoretical background and the critical thinking as scientists. They are open-minded, and they have experience as being athletes themselves or coaching athletes. And that's why we wrote this book together. That's why I chose those three other guys to write the book with me.
So when you guys put it together, the other guys have different areas of expertise, that are maybe a little bit different than yours, different areas. When you were getting ready to write the chapters that you were writing, you referenced that, we haven't done anything new. We've referenced a lot of the older stuff, and you correct me if I'm wrong. I think that the sad part is that even from the 60s, 70s, 80s, we still haven't adopted that very well, and used it very well, especially in the West.
Yeah.
And so we haven't even moved. Not only have we not moved off of it, I don't think we even, in the general sense, I don't think we've mastered that very well either, up to this degree. That's what I always say is, with people is you need to grasp what you've already heard, not
exactly.
First and then go to the next step. So when you talk about, taking off from the 80s and, and when the Soviet Union fell apart, obviously a lot of things kind of went by the wayside, right? And in a lot of countries that happened that were depending on the Soviet Union, like Germany or, Poland, different areas like that. So from the place that we left off at to now, when you were writing the chapters for the book, what were the newer concepts that you thought you wanted to get across? Like what's changed?
Well, basically, a lot of things did change. Don't forget that in Russia, if you read the book of Matveyev or in East Germany, Hare, who translated books from Russia into German in East Germany, it's never about the individual. It's always about, of course, from the political point of view, from the ideology point of view, the collective, the community is more important than the individual. There's no room for the individual. So all the scientific work was about average people. You take 100 swimmers, you take 100 athletes, you look at the volume, the intensity, and you see when you increase the intensity and decrease the volume, their shape will change. Yeah, but that's an average number right there, and not about the individual. So I'm always working with an individual. Now, I'm not working with large groups. I'm not interested in average athletes and average performances. I'm working with individual, and I want to squeeze the very best out of genetic potential of that particular individual. It means that any other athlete of my group will get a different program and will get a different focus and different exercises. And that's my way of working. And I think that's to reach the very top, unless you have the perfect conditions and lots of people, which I or we here in Europe don't have. We don't have lots of people. Holland has 17 million people. And still, we're in top 10 in the world in Olympic medals, which is surprising for a small country. 70 million people is not too many. And then number 10 in the world, of course, China and the US and Russia and all the big ones, people with lots more higher population have more medals, but that's obvious. And they have different sports as well. We have no mountains, so winter sports or skiing is out of the question for us. A lot of things changed in the biomedical field. You see that the thing we developed in the 1990s, like power training, well, it was forgotten. It was picked up recently in the US, put on a new, a new code, and we call it now velocity-based training. But for us, it was a concept already developed more than 25 years ago. And then we spent already 5 or 6 years working with a group of people developing this, and we knew everything about it. And now I'm kind of shocked to see that people present it as being a new concept, and they don't know 10% of what we knew or what we figured out already 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's kind of let me say it, at least interesting to read.
Everything that's old is now new.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a repackage as a new and improved, but it's the same content basically that we figured out 25 years ago, and it's only one of the many examples that we have. Another thing is that, for instance, I already mentioned that most of our information comes from Russia and East Germany, or the former East Bloc countries, from Tudor Bompa, from Romania, and so on. So what about have we been doing ourselves in the last 40 years? Couldn't we come up with a model of periodization? I mean, it's not really rocket science I'm talking about. So what have we been doing? Were things too easy for us? So we always had success without periodization? Or were things too complicated for us? So we didn't want to work and let ourselves be informed by the former East Bloc countries about periodization? This is just from philosophical point of view. What's happening with us? There is no American model of periodization or Dutch or German model of periodization. It's only coming from the East Bloc. So there's definitely several reasons for that, because, for instance, was a good cooperation between sports scientists and coaches, as well as in East Germany. So the share of information between the theoretical and the practical was much closer than here. Here, the sports scientist is doing his job and the coach is doing his job, and well, the two practically never meet somehow. They meet somehow, but not as far as information or very close cooperation is concerned. There is something going on, but it's a coincidence. It's an incident, an accident, we say, for the coach and the sports scientists work together for many years. And this is what I started to do in the 1980s, work together with sports scientists. Even I was single and did have a state system to stimulate that or to make it possible. I still went to see the best scientists and work with them. If it was only, you can read the chapter of Bill Leich about muscle biopsies. I delivered the athletes. I wanted to know what muscle fiber they had, if they could be changed. His PhD was about the change in muscle fiber composition in high or fast isokinetic training. So can you change muscle fiber composition? Doesn't matter what kind of training you do, fast or slow. So that was a very interesting question for me, because I wanted to create athletes, I want to work with athletes fast fiber and to improve that fiber type, or to increase that fiber type as well. So there you see a close cooperation for 20 years with a scientist. He doesn't need to be on the track every day, although when he is around on the track most of the time with me to study and to talk and to discuss. And it's one of these cooperations we established over many years, like Carmelo Bosco, the Italian Spaniel. He spent every day on the track, and we have been doing some interesting things together, like the vibration platform, the jump platform, hypergravity, and so on and so on. So we challenged each other and made him a better scientist, and they made me a better coach, I think.
What separates an elite, world-class athlete from everyone else? Their genes make them quicker, react faster, and more explosive. What if there was a way to, in a sense, turn on those elite athlete genes in the average person? Recent advances in genomic research and sports nutrition have proven this is now possible. Introducing Milesink by Nootromic Sport Nutrition. Multiple studies show it increases quickness, explosiveness, and strength. In most cases, your vertical increases by at least 1 inch an hour after it's taken. Through a proprietary blend of ingredients, Milesink in effect flips the switch on those genes that make you jump higher, run faster, and lift heavier weights. Here are several Milesink testimonials.
This is Daniel Stokes. He's a sprinter. What was your best time before we started training this season with Milesink?
21.5.
And what's your best time as of today?
20.7.
Could you explain to us what the fast twitch muscle supplements done for you, Milesink?
It made me more explosive. It helped with my reaction time off the ground, bring my knees up quicker, and I continually progress.
This is Matt Tomey, head strength and conditioning coach for football and men's basketball at Michigan Tech. If you haven't tried Nootromic Sport Nutrition's supplement Milesink yet, you're definitely missing out. I've had athletes here try the supplement and really enjoy the benefits, including an immediate improvement in vertical jump of about 1 inch. Milesink really stands out with its ability to improve power output, speed, reaction time, even potentially quick decision making. If you haven't checked out this unique supplement yet, go ahead and pick up a bottle of Milesink and give it a shot and just see for yourself.
Here is lead formulator Rick Bruner's brief explanation of Milesink.
Milesink evolved out of the neuroproteomic research we conducted starting back in 2005 to nutritionally boost the speed strength traits of well-trained athletes. These speed strength traits could include things like reaction time, starting power, maximal speed, quickness and agility, and also fine motor skills. Double-blind placebo studies as well as many outcome studies have been conducted on well-trained athletes from many sports and of many ages. The results of this research have shown a sizable boost in muscle contractions as well as the synchronization of these muscle contractions during speed strength activities.
Yeah, so really, like you said, that doesn't happen at all in the United States, to my knowledge. I mean, it's almost non-existent, I would say.
Yeah.
Where you see, number one, there aren't a lot of scientists to actually cooperate with to begin with. Like, we're not really studying them here. Athletes the same way on the research side, and if we were, nobody's seeking it out either, like in a real sense. Most people, like you said, they might, quote some studies on PubMed or whatever, and then draw conclusions. What I see is that the drawing conclusions that are erroneous from information that they don't understand very well. Is what I can tell. Because I could see how I would make wrong judgment calls about research unless I had a mentor. If I didn't have a mentor who could help frame that for me, to say, no, this is the context of the study. This is how you need to understand it or look at it. But if you're a young student and you're reading a bunch of studies, I think what you do is get more confused. I don't know what you think, like that sometimes, is that you see that being a problem?
Yeah. Yeah, for instance, I was just thinking about the other problem with the application of science is that even in sprinting, which is my job mainly as a sprint coach, we didn't figure out the most important things. And different coaching scientists are only thinking in polarities. They think about, okay, backside mechanics, and on the other hand, you have the enemy, which is frontside mechanics. So frontside mechanics, the other old-fashioned thing is backside mechanics. They like to sound interesting, they just fight each other. So the other guy doesn't know shit. He's only doing backside or frontside mechanics. So that's a fight. Instead of figuring out, okay, what is the relationship between those two? Has serious research been done? The same about, for instance, now it's popular. Should we do bilateral exercises like the normal regular squat, or unilateral exercise, only one leg squat because there's many reasons. So again, there's two camps fighting each other. Another one, there's a should we do squats? It's a vertical component which is important in sprinting, or it's a horizontal component. So we do hip thrusts to make that okay. Fighting each other again for sheer interest, and so you have to take sides, or you're thinking about it, and in the end, somewhere the truth must be in the middle. And the truth is, it depends. And it depends on the athlete, for instance. Some athletes are born to become, have a backside mechanics, doing better with a pushing kind of movement, at least in their head. And the other ones are better off by running with frontside mechanics, more putting active clawing movement, anticipating the ground contact. So it depends on the athlete, but that's never mentioned. It's all, again, now it's two camps fighting each other and talking about the average athlete.
Right. It's out of context.
Yeah. Nobody has the helicopter view of this.
Yeah. Right.
Because they all became specialists, and nobody is a generalist anymore, and nobody can see from above what is really happening. You are pushed into one camp, or you choose one camp, and the other guys don't know anything in the first place. And that's a situation I don't really appreciate, I must say that.
We've seen a lot in the United States, probably maybe as much as anywhere, where people, they'll debate a lot of different things. And I get questions from a lot of the younger coaches. They ask me about different exercises. And I'm like, there's really no such thing as a bad exercise unless it's performed poorly.
Exactly.
But they're all tools in a toolbox, and they have maybe some ascending orders of importance, like some might be more than other ones. But there's no such thing as a bad one. It's unless it's performed poorly. But if it's performed correctly, all exercises are okay. They're fine, and they just have different levels of value. It depends on the situation. And a lot of people don't grasp. I think that's the part that they don't understand, that the contextual aspect of everything. And what was a good exercise last year for this athlete may not be the one we want to use this year. Doesn't mean it's worse this year. The exercise didn't change; the athlete changed. So we have to change. So I see that a lot. On the book, I wanted to get on some of the things. If you could give me maybe a short little kind of intro into a couple of the chapters that you wrote. Tell me what you were doing. I think that would be great for people to get a preview of everything. When you talked about some of the issues in the methodology of training and then training 2.0, what are those chapters about? What, in a general sense?
Well, some improvements. I have been talking the last couple of minutes about the individual. I think the individual athlete and his strengths and weaknesses. So profiling becomes very interesting. What is my athlete? What is the tendency? You can choose front side or back side, but is it more back side oriented or front side area? Is it more whatever, fast or slow fibers? This makes a difference. In the brain, it makes a difference. So it doesn't matter what profile you take, but at least profile your athlete where they're at. And don't look at the average athlete and treat them or coach them as being everybody is the same. That's probably the main point of this. And then further I go into the profiling. What should we be profiling for? A muscle fiber type is an important one. Brain functioning is an important one. Can you handle stress or not? That's an important one. what chronotype you have. Are you a morning type or evening type? It makes a difference. What time you train, with all the limitations of that knowledge. Because if the track, your club or your team is only training in the evening, well, your best time to train might be in the morning, but well, you're the only one on the track because the rest is training in the evening. I know all the limitations. I've seen them. I've experienced them. So it's just a way of thinking about it. Just think. Think.
If you were to summarize that, you're saying take the principles that you've learned or that we hope that we know, and try to apply them to the specific situation and work them out with the specific athlete. How does this principle apply to this person? This principle apply to that person? And how does it change how I should look at the athlete or how I should with the athlete instead of making a blanket kind of prediction over what you should do?
Unless every athlete who you coach is going to be a world champion or a world record holder, Olympic champion, don't fall in love with your system. Don't fall in love with your system because, we all in this way, we have been successful in this way. There is always room for improvement, so try to improve yourself. We're not very self-critical. We think that we have our own little system figured out, taking information from different sources and then mix it together. We call it now our system, where 90% was taken from other coaches. And it's hard to track down an original thought in coaches on an original concept. Coaches are not that original. They're great stealers of ideas, which doesn't really matter, but they steal ideas and in the end they integrate it and think they figured it out themselves. And they basically read it somewhere or they heard it somewhere or they saw it somewhere, and that's basically it.
I would say lack of innovation probably, is right on that list.
Yep.
And also the other thing I think you see is temperament. Like a lot of people have a certain temperament and they can't adjust that to the athlete. Like if their temperament is to go all out all the time, they have a hard time bringing that back in when it's time to pull back. You know, I see that a lot. Where people have trouble controlling that, or they've learned something new and they got to run out and try it on the athlete right now when it may not be the right time. You know what I'm saying? Do you see this?
I know. I just wrote an article in Dutch for a Dutch, I think, or for my blog. I don't even know, but I don't think I want to publish it because it's kind of. I belong to that too, to this group of people who, coaches always like to whine and moan about things. They seldom show any solidarity or stand up for if they see something wrong happening. They don't speak. They prefer to ignore, look to the other side. Keep silent about things that just are not right, unjust. Coaches love exercises, man. They love exercises. They like if you show a new exercise now, they'll do it tomorrow, and after 3 weeks, there's no world record holder. It's just shitty exercise, and I'm a shitty teacher or a shitty coach because I showed them exercise and it didn't work. They like to copy other people's work.
Right.
Usain Bolt's workout. They love Usain Bolt's workout because that's his secret. But if you really look around, and I've been around a bit, from China to Argentina, from the US to Australia to all the countries in between, basically, you will see that strength coaches all over the world, 90% of the exercises and the drills are exactly the same. So the drill in itself cannot be the secret. And they still think, a new drill, so it must be a good one. It's just a matter of entertainment more than anything else. So, hey, surprise your athletes, like a little gift to the athlete. Hey, you know what? I found a new drill. Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. Oh, this feels really good. Yeah. And then 3 days later, the thrill of the drill is gone. So these are kind of these things that you see all the time, and it doesn't seem to change. It seems to be in it for coaches.
I think you're right, and it's funny because they'll if the athlete says they like it, then they're even more excited. The athlete doesn't have any idea.
No, it's just about that. No.
I don't care if they. I mean, I don't want them to be miserable in training, but I'm not worried about entertaining. It's
exactly
right. So I want to, and I don't want to keep you too long because I wanted to be succinct so you can get the message across. On the last chapter that you wrote, which was on EMG training, could you touch on that? Like what, it was a little bit of a smaller chapter, but like, how do you use EMG? What were you getting across?
Let's face it, our body consists for 40% of muscle tissue, skeletal muscle tissue, which moves us basically. And that's the main point of our training. Oh yeah, we want stronger bones, absolutely, absolutely. But you don't perform well if you have weaker bones unless you have osteoporosis. You want to change all kind of other things, of course, they're limiting factors. But the main thing about change is the muscle tissue. You want to change the quality of the muscle tissue, the fiber type. Even if you don't know it, you still do it. You want to increase the size of the muscle by hypertrophy. You want to increase the recruitment of the muscle, so the threshold is coming down. So all kind of things here. So, but really, what do we do about it? We take oxygen uptake. Yeah, okay. Tell us something about the lungs and a little bit about our heart. And okay, we do lactic acid testing, which is only metabolic. Tells you about biochemistry, but nothing about the muscle tissue itself. So we do an exercise, and during this exercise, which muscles are you using? How hard are you using them? It's like we take 3 muscle groups. Let's say in a takeoff, we take the quads, the glutes, and the hamstrings. What percentage are you using when you take off in a jump or when you are sprinting? And is there a difference between the left and the right quad, the left and the right glute, the left and the right hamstring and muscle activation? We have no clue. And then we do an exercise, and we know the exercise, the real competition demands. Okay, this is muscle 1. There's muscle 2 firing here, and muscle 3 is firing right here, like the stages of a rocket. Now we do an exercise, and we see, okay, this muscle is firing hard, okay, and this muscle isn't firing at all, and then this one is firing. So we know that exercise only takes 2 parts of the chain, but all 3 parts of that chain. So we have a completely different exercise. There's no similarity between the exercise you're executing and the demands of competition, what you're doing in competition. That's what we want to figure out. For instance, we have a short with in the quads, the glutes, and the hamstrings, left and right, so we can measure real time while sprinting, or sprinting with resistance, or super maximal sprinting, or uphill sprinting, or squats, or jumps, anything. So now we can see which muscles work, how hard they work, and when they work. And now we have an idea what the demands of competition are for those muscles, and we have an idea of what coordination and control really means. So yeah, it's coordinations of the muscle, but what does it really mean if you don't know if they are coordinated and when they are coordinated and how strong they are coordinated with each other? So we see the game, the interaction between those muscles. That's basically it.
That's a great point. In team sports, probably a little more popular here. People make a lot of presumptions of what muscles are involved, but they don't know which ones, to what degree, and then what percentage, and in what sequence.
Exactly.
And knowing all of that allows for you correct me if I'm wrong, to raise your specificity in the way that you're training, to elicit that very specific outcome.
Well, it increases the efficiency of the training. For instance, you are a sprinter and you want to increase the strength of the hamstrings, and then, or the glutes, it doesn't really matter. And then you do an exercise. Well, I've read on the internet, this is the best hamstring exercise there is. And then you put the shorts on, you do the hamstring exercise, the hamstrings are basically silent. They're working only for the work has to be done by the glutes or by the adductors or by other muscle groups, but not by the hamstrings. And so, well, it's a great exercise, just not for the hamstrings. So if you perform that exercise to increase the hamstrings, you will fail because the hamstring doesn't get stronger if you don't use it during that exercise. And so on. And so you can continue. You can see the efficiency of that exercise and really what muscles you're really working on. Yeah. And it might differ, for instance, the famous glute hamstring race. You see tremendous difference in people executing the same perfect execution of this exercise. Some people do this mainly with the lower back, strange enough. Some people do this mainly with the glutes, and other people, they use 80% of the hamstrings, and the glutes barely use the glutes. Well, executing the same exercise, depending on many factors, anatomy, leverage, you name it, fascia, and so on and so on. Sure. So that's interesting to have a better look, and it helps you to understand the intensity of the movement as well, how muscles work. It's just a great, simple and great tool. And yes, you have to take some effort to understand muscles. You have to take some effort to understand EMG. You have to be able to read it. But once again, it's not rocket science. It's not that difficult. But and today's world, it's easier
to do, with EMG testing. It's more accessible.
Yeah. Look, it's not cheap, but if you see the a pair of shoes or the equipment in the most gyms or all the apps and toys that people have. It's just a cheap, very cheap and a very helpful tool. I wouldn't say throw away the other stuff, but I would definitely, it would be one of my first choices to see what really happens in athletes.
Sure. Well, Henk, I appreciate your time. I know it's getting late over there, and I really appreciate your time. And we're going to get back together again and do this a couple times. We can kind of get into a couple of the other areas, and then maybe talk about some of the other authors' chapters too. For me, it's very exciting because there's a dearth of newer information out there. So this is exciting for people, at least like me, who are curious. Because, like you said, you're always thinking like, well, how can I do this better? You're always wanting to do better, and this kind of at least gives you some ideas that you can start to integrate in, and improve how you're doing. So I appreciate it very much, and I'm excited to see what else comes out, because I know you guys are. I know you're not choppy thinking, so I'm excited to see what the remainder of the things come out. So let's get together soon. We'll talk about this more, and I appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
No problem. Hey, you're welcome, and enjoy reading the book and working with it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye, Jozef.